I'm Owen Bigland. This is the Inside Edge video blog. Time for one of my quarterly blogs or so, every 4 or 5 months anyways. I'll do a blog on the importance of location and buying quality. And especially now we're into the dog days of summer here, the condo market is starting to show early signs of starting to get more balanced. It's still favoring the sellers for the most part, but we are seeing signs that the condo market is starting to balance out now. I'm seeing more price reductions on condos, although in most cases the price they started at was dreaming. It was the price you would have gotten, last spring. But I am seeing more price reductions. Days on market are going up. I'm still seeing some bidding wars though on good quality downtown Vancouver 1-bedroom units, but not as many, that's for sure. I can look at a snapshot of the MLS that the public doesn't have every day with my Paragon, the Realtor MLS. It'll show every sale in the day for Vancouver, and it has either a green arrow meaning up, which means it went over asking, or a red arrow that went down. So in 5 seconds I could just skim through all the condos and detached homes and see how many green arrows and how many red arrows. I can tell you 6 months ago it was green all the way until you got into the $2 or $3 million price range. Now it's a lot more red arrows than there are green. So there are days on market are going up. There are still some units that are selling over ask. A lot of the good ones might be selling right at ask or just below. So it still favors sellers. But wanted to talk about buying quality here. And when markets are on a run like this, I've blogged about it many times, people start to chase what I call the bottom feeder units. And this has been going on for a couple of years now, and I go back to my blogs on it. And a lot of the pre-sale stuff, in my opinion, was in poor locations that haven't even been built yet, but you're going to find out when you move into these things. And these are things that are siding onto bridges or off-ramps, incredibly busy areas, non-stop traffic, poor location units and buildings. These you've got to be careful with. Now, that I've gotten several emails recently about, so I thought I'll just mention it quickly. I've had people, and this doesn't surprise me, because when a market starts to go up like this, as I say, they start to look for ways to get into the market for the cheapest amount of money they can. And the cheapest way they're going to get into the market is through these hotel strata ownership agreements. And this is things like the Hilton Hotel, the Marriott out in Richmond, which I've sold some units in, which I'll talk about. But I've had some people ask me about, there's a couple of them in downtown Vancouver, a Marriott Pinnacle. I've had recently some people ask me about some stuff out in Whistler and Pemberton. These are hotel ownership things where you buy the 400 square foot or 300 square foot furnished hotel, and the management company, the hotel, let's say it's the Marriott, runs the unit for you, charges a nightly rack room rate, takes a heavy management expense, plus all the upkeep to keep the hotel up, and then cuts you a check every week. Now, I would strongly urge people to avoid these type of deals. And trust me, because I've sold these turkeys before. And I'm going to tell you, they're not good. I had several sales in Richmond, this is 2-3 years ago, the Hilton and the Marriott, and both were estate sales. I was dealing with trustees, so I wasn't dealing with the seller at arm's length. I didn't know who the seller was. But I can tell you they paid far more than what we were able to sell these things. And this is why I would avoid them. I had to get the documents on this thing, so ran a title search. I tried to get as much information as I could on the hotel management agreement. Give me the 2 years worth of financial statements. How much revenue were these units actually producing? And I tell you, I was shocked at how little information I was able to get. Talk about opaque. I mean, the quarterly or monthly statements, and then they would do an annual statement, it didn't tell you much at all. It basically had total revenue, management expenses, you had a whole bunch of costs in there for furniture upgrades, which is ongoing, TVs that had to be replaced, maids. But the thing is that the units were, first off, seasonal, so in the summertime, the revenues would be decent and you're actually making a bit of money. In the wintertime, and in one of those winter months, it was a ghost town and the hotel was losing money. But listen, this is like investing in real estate on training wheels. I would avoid these things. There's no information. There are far better ways to invest in real estate, but you're going to have to get a little more money together. Don't chase these bottom feeder units. These things now are selling at $200,000, $225,000. You're going to need to step up another $100K at least, and I can get you a good one-bedroom unit in Richmond that you can manage. You put a tenant in. There's no opaque accounting. You're not at the whim of the management company who are handling the money. You know, the old rule in business is, a lot of people know this, is, you know, always hang on to the money. And remember that when you're investing in real estate. You want to be the one that's collecting the rent checks. You don't want to be having a management company or a hotel management company collecting the money and then taking their expenses off the top, and then here's what we're going to give you with no detailed accounting. It's dumb. Stay away from these things. Don't chase these bottom feeder things. But this is what happens. Markets go up on a tear here. They get priced out of being able to buy a good one bedroom at $400 or $500 or $600 if it's in Vancouver. So they go chase these $220,000 hotel units thinking it's a good deal. And it's not. You'd be better off to keep your money, keep saving it until we can get you something good, then buy it. So it's what I've talked about before. I would much rather see people not buy anything than buy some turkey like a hotel strata, or buy some crappy unit that's hugging up on a bridge you know, in good times you can put a tenant in. But when times turn, and they always do, and we may be seeing the early signs here of maybe this condo market finally starting to balance, it's normal. Let's say we get a 10 or 15 or 20% correction, you are going to see these turkey units get killed. They're the ones that get hurt the most. If you buy a good quality unit in downtown Vancouver, a small studio unit or a one bedroom, good building, good strata, rent it for $1,700 or $2,000 a month, you're going to do fine. Good times and bad times, just keep it. But the ones when the market does turn that are hugging up on a bridge in bad locations, those ones get tough to rent, especially when the rental market, it goes up and down too, and you get a little more inventory out there, and you're not in a landlord's dreamland like we are now. Those units are a lot tougher to rent. And when it comes time to sell those units, and now you've got 10 other units in the building, and you're trying to sell your turkey location one here, you're going to have to slash your price dramatically, give that buyer an incentive to take on your turkey unit. So those are the ones, people that get their heads handed. Now, if you buy a bad unit on a bridge, pay $500K for it today, and the market turns next year or 2 years from now and it's down to $450, you know, you'll still do fine on it as long as you keep it rented, wait for the next cycle to take off, and you'll do fine. But if you're forced to have to sell this in a down market, then you're going to take a haircut. These units are tough to sell. I sell them all the time. I'm a realtor, I'm a marketer. Not all the units I get are great grade A units. That's what makes my job interesting. I have to sell the turkey units too. But it takes a lot more time, and you got to get creative, and you definitely have to offer the buyer some incentive to take your poor location unit. And especially when you get into a market that's favoring buyers and the buyer has 30 units to choose from. When you get a market like we've had lately, everything sells. Like one of my colleagues says, you know, you wouldn't have homes on Knight Street. There's a buyer for everything, and if there wasn't, you wouldn't have homes on Knight Street. And he's right. Even homes on Knight Street, when the market's hot, can sell for multiple offers and sell over asking. But when a market gets balanced, or turns to a buyer's market, these homes that are on Knight Street are a much tougher sell, and if you do want to sell them, you're going to have to offer the buyer some incentive. So I would say, what I've been pounding home to people, buy quality. If you have to spend an extra 10 or 15%, don't chase these bottom feeder units. Pay the extra 15% and buy a higher quality unit in a better location, in a better strata, in a better neighborhood. Just on one final note here, people ask, well, where are good locations? Well, if it was me, my number one market is if you can and you can afford $500K, because that's what we're going to need to get you a small junior one bedroom or studio. I just had one we sold for $480 with parking. Buy, if you can, in downtown Vancouver, because they're not making them anymore down here, and what is coming online is going to be luxury. So that would be, if someone had $550 or $600 and wanted to know where he should buy, I would probably push them to, and it was an investment unit, I would go downtown Vancouver. Or my next choice would be some of the surrounding neighborhoods: Fairview, Kitsilano, Cambie, Mount Pleasant, Olympic Village. If your budget is not there, then we'll go a little further out: Burnaby, Richmond, on SkyTrain. That's what I would recommend to you, depending on where your budget's at. But buy something in a good strata, and that's where your realtor's got to do his homework. I see units sold all the time here on the MLS that I know these stratas because I've read the docs, and they're terrible. They're terrible. They've got depreciation reports. There's a couple of stratas in Richmond that are being held together with rubberized paint. They're leaky condos. 10 years ago, they discovered they were leaky condos, but they buried the engineer's reports. Most realtors won't get access to it because you only get 2 years worth of docs, so it's long gone. And they decided to cover up with rubberized paint, painted the stucco with rubber. But they're falling apart. But I still see units on the MLS being sold in these turkeys. So it's crazy. You got to do your homework, and that's why you want to hire an experienced realtor who knows these stratas. But buy quality. If you've got $50K burning a hole in your pocket and you're dying to spend it, I'd much rather, and you can't afford to get into a good quality unit right now, then I'd much rather you see you put that $50K in your TFSA and buy some Bell Canada or some Royal Bank or some Johnson & Johnson or some Apple shares before you go and chase one of these hotel strata style units. Or another one that I do not like and stay away from would be leasehold properties. Do not buy these. They're a joke. But I see people buying leasehold land, leasehold units out in UBC and paying $1 million for them. It's crazy. But if you got a $50K burning a hole in your pocket and you can't afford to buy something quality, as I say, put it in your TFSA and wait till you can save up a little more money and get something quality. So be careful out there. Again, it's the good, the bad, and the ugly here. Don't buy someone else's problems, which is what you can do in a hot market like we've had. Step up, buy a good quality unit in downtown Vancouver or somewhere in surrounding neighborhoods or on SkyTrain. Don't go chasing these turkeys, because you're going to find out here when we get this market correction, which is going to come eventually. I'll do some blogs on it, and I will show you some examples of how badly some of these guys are going to get their heads handed to them if they're forced to sell in a down market. Again, if you can hang on to the thing, real estate is forgiving. You're not going to get the appreciation on these turkey units like you would on a quality unit. That's one thing. You'll still get some appreciation though. Just won't be as good as the quality units. But if these guys are forced to sell some of these turkeys when we're into a buyer's market, I'll do a blog or two, and I've done it before, on they're going to get their heads handed to them as they're going to find out. Inventory's up, lots of selection. You've got to cut your price to give someone an incentive to buy this thing because they're tough to rent. I'm Owen Bigland. As always, thanks for watching. I'll see you next week.